Greetings and salutations to our fine podcast audience.
Hello.
Ed, Nathan.
Hello.
It's still hot. We're still filming from last
It
week.
is.
We have a
got
little
the
air
air
on. We
conditioner
turned the air on so I can feel it.
Ooh, I do
can
feel
the
it.
air.
It got a little steamy in here. You know
It
that
did.
that whole talk about the vaccine.
Yeah, the vaccine talk
That's what it
heated
was.
us up.
Yeah,
That-
if you
that
haven't
did it
seen
for
that, that
us.
was last week's
That was last week's
so you can go back
podcast,
and
so
see
You
it.
can
Go
go
back.
back and watch that.
You
I'll
can.
say this: it's that time of year though that the inside heat is worse than the outside heat. Like
Yes.
being inside right now, if the air conditioner's not on, it's worse
It
than
feels stuffy, but
Yeah.
outside it feels nice.
Yeah, you got a little breeze, and it's not as quite as humid. Come July though,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, it is Georgia.
yes.
Yeah, humidity's
That's
going to
how
come.
it is. So, all right. Moving on from the small talk today. As you guys who follow us, you know, we've been in a series for several weeks now, talking about the topic of marriage, and specifically, we titled it "How to Divorce Proof Your Marriage." And
You know, one of the things, and I said this, I think, live Sunday. I don't think I said it, or whenever that was, a few weeks ago. I don't think I said it on the recording, but one of the reasons that prompted this series was we bought some demographic, sociographic information on our county and found out that our county is above the national average in marriages that are in distress.
Yep.
And it's the way they do that information, which I thought was interesting, is they're not asking questions of people. They're looking at big data searches.
Yep.
And what you can find from big data searches is things that people won't tell you when you ask them a question. They are searching for it.
Yep.
They are searching.
you
for
mean
it.
their internet searches?
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
they're learning off the big data. You know, all the stuff that we know. You know, people are searching for my marriage. Where do I find marriage? Is there a marriage counselor in our area? Where's there a divorce lawyer in our area?
Or they're clicking on articles about stuff.
Yeah,
or all
exactly
that
right.
different kind
They're-
of stuff. All that
So
information.
all of those kinds of things. Our area is above the national average in those kind of distressing kind of things. So that's why we wanted to talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I thought we would just spend a little time. We'll take a break from listener questions for a while, which, by the way, if you want to ask a question, you want us to answer it, always click that link in the description.
If you got a question about marriage,
You can, yeah,
you
we'll
can
answer
ask us
that.
a question about marriage.
If there's a specific thing you'd like us to talk about that maybe we didn't get to in the series, and that
like
we
what
don't
our
get
favorite marriage song is. What's our favorite wedding?
Is there a marriage
I
song?
mean, like wedding song. What's
Oh,
your favorite
I
wedding
thought-
song?
wedding song.
I thought I couldn't think of a marriage song.
Oh, there's got to be
I
marriage
have to think
songs.
on that one a bit. What qualifies
I-
as a wedding song?
I
guess
don't.
they got
I'm
played
going
at
to
a
say
wedding.
right now I don't have one.
Me either.
Yeah, I don't either. No.
I couldn't
That
tell
wouldn't be
you
a
what
good
got
question,
sung
don't
at my wedding. I do know, and I'm not going to say who, but there was a person at my wedding who sang at my wedding that was so emotionally moved before the wedding they could not sing. They cried through the song they were singing.
Nope. Nope. Nope.
So this was before videotape days. We have an
get that.
audio tape of it, and it's.
Well, that's a memory.
We had all Beatles music at our wedding ceremony, and I'm trying to think what the song. We had a song sung during our Unity candle that was a Beatles song, but I don't remember what it was. I know that the whatever it's called is it the procession that happens after.
no, that's
Procession
recession.
happens before.
That's pro.
Okay, so
Pre-
during the recession,
Pro is we're going in.
Recession.
right. During that, we had "All My Lovin'" by the Beatles. That was
Okay,
what we
that's a good one.
exited on. But I can't. I want to say it was "In My Life."
Jennifer, I know, walked into.
No, she walked in. She walked into that was a whole deal. She walked into the normal bridal march. She
wanted to come in
to "Here Comes the Sun."
Here Comes the Sun.
That was
That's
what we,
perfect.
yeah, that would have been a great one. So
That's awesome. So,
I had another wedding. I think you all talking about popular songs
Yeah.
at a wedding. This is. We could have some fun with that. Weddings that you did. I haven't done. I don't do weddings anymore. But when I used to do weddings, I had a wedding once where the groom walked in to "Let's get ready to rumble."
that's a good one.
I remember that.
That's
you
a
told me
good
about
one.
that.
He
I wasn't
walked
there.
in to that, and then the groom came in.
The bride.
The bride came into "Here Comes the Sun," along with the dog, who left where they were. The dog. So we're standing like me. I'm standing here. Behind me is the reception. It's already set up. It's back here. The dog did not stop where we were. they went and began to eat on
There
the
you go.
reception.
I've been involved in many a wedding as either someone who helped, because I used to go help you when you would do weddings, and I would either do tech stuff or something like that. But then I've also been paid to sing at a bunch of weddings, and anytime there's a dog involved, it ain't good.
Oh, no.
something gonna happen. Or
very small children. They're kind of close.
I'll say it's the amount of children you have.
Yeah.
One can probably give, but just recently, all 4 of my daughters were in a wedding, and it actually went okay.
A little bit
but
of chaos,
it could have been.
You're
bad.
always on the edge of something going wrong.
And I warned.
But that's what makes it interesting.
I warned the bride. She's also in my family, and I said this ain't gonna go good. But it did. So I guess I was wrong. It all went
here's
fine.
another wedding dog story. I don't know if this is interesting to you, but I did a whole thing where
find out.
the dog was the best man. I've done 2 weddings where the dog, which that sort of not a man. I don't know if that's offensive to the dog or to the man. I don't know, but anyway,
Depending on who you ask.
It was a small animal, a really small animal, and they built a stand for the animal to come up and be at level with me.
Oh.
So the whole time I'm talking here, the dog is like here.
Did he stay there the whole
Oh
time?
yeah, he was very well trained.
good-
Trained dog there.
He was right, and I mean he was right here, like like that the whole time, and
That's intense.
had the ring tied around his neck on a collar.
Oh my goodness.
Oh.
And so it was my job to reach over
Oh man.
by the thing, which they just don't know. These hands are not made for delicate things.
No. No.
We could probably do a whole podcast on crazy wedding stories.
Stuff.
So,
No kidding.
but
Oh, I got mother of the bride stories too,
let's-
but I'm gonna let them go.
We'll
I
wait
got-
on
I
Those
got
are
some-
the
I got
best.
some real mother of the bride stories.
we'll stop it right there. No, we don't need that. So, okay. So, we're going to talk a little bit about probably not stuff we get to talk about in the series, but maybe just some personal stuff that we've learned over the years through marriage and that
What
kind
do
of
you
stuff.
dislike the most about your spouse?
No, we're not going to talk about that.
Are we recording?
Hold on. I wrote a list beforehand.
Yeah. So here's where we're going to start. Tell a little bit about how you met your wife and
All right.
the whole thing, how long you've been married, that whole deal.
I'm gonna let y'all go first on this because I've been married the longest.
Oh,
So I get
okay.
to-
Does
Well,
that
then if we're
change-
gonna go in
does
that
change
order-
how long it took you to meet your spouse?
I have the most to try to remember.
Oh, okay.
So if we're gonna
Okay,
go in
I
that
understand.
order,
well,
then
then
Nathan's
for that
first.
reason, I've been married the shortest amount of time. So, I met my wife in middle school, and we met through a mutual friend back when instant messaging chat rooms were a thing. So, I guess they still are a thing, but I don't think they're quite as popular as they were when I was a teenager. They were kind of your they got replaced by MySpace and then Facebook and such. That was how you kept track with your friends. So I would get a bunch of my friends, and then I had another friend. She got a bunch of her friends, and my wife Jennifer was one of these other people that were in there. And so then we became friends through that by just talking. We had each other's screen names, so we started talking, and then I want to say maybe 2 years after that, we kind of reconnected. We lost touch, and then we reconnected in the same kind of way on Instant Messenger. We'd still never met face to face, but it's all those teen high school romances. You talk for 2 or 3 hours a night, and you go, "Ooh, I think I like her." And I wasn't sure she wasn't a 40-year-old dude, so I had to figure that part out. And we managed to meet up. We had some friends who were going to a movie together, so we went and met there. And so that's how we officially met. We went to the movies here in Ashley Park when we were 15. I had just turned 15. So, and then we dated all through high school and got engaged the weekend that we graduated high school, and were married about a year after that. So this year will be 12 years for us.
Wow.
So, but
I
to
had
be
forgotten
married.
that you were that young when you got married.
Yes, we have now reached the point. We have been in a relationship, whatever you want to call that, for over 16 years. So we're now at the point we've been together in a relationship longer than we were alive before.
Yeah.
So it's that.
Yep.
So I would say, when you think about the thing I think is interesting, and I don't remember fully what your question was, but I know one of your questions is something about what's been the biggest blessing is we grew up
not there
together.
yet.
Oh, not
don't
there
answer
yet.
that
Okay,
one.
I'll wait for
Okay,
that question.
We'll wait on that
We're
one.
not there yet, right?
All right. No, not yet.
we are very structured here. I don't want to jump into different.
Don't go there.
no.
Man. You're ruining the whole podcast.
That's right. There's a flow here that I've interrupted. So
I have to call foul.
I apologize. I know Ed likes to keep us on task.
There's
Yeah.
no one more orderly than me.
Tell another story about a dog.
Yeah, that's how we roll. I met my wife in college.
All right.
I was, in fact, when you want to talk about when I met her, I was actually dating another girl.
Uh-oh.
The girl that I had dated in high school and then on into college. So I met my wife at that point, So long story short, I won't throw that girl under the bus, but that relationship did not work out. It crashed real hard. And
Not because of Helga.
No. Had nothing to do with her. And so that happened. And then there's this, again, I'm not going to tell the whole story, but there's this crazy kind of moment that it just all kind of fell into place. Some crazy stuff happened. And my wife gets stuck in town with nobody no friends around. And she starts looking through this phone directory for the campus ministry that we were all a part of. And I was the first name that she came to that was in town. And so she calls me up late that night and she goes, "You busy? I'm bored. I just want to go hang out." And I'm like, okay, because, we really we knew each other, but not very well. She was just like, "You're the first person I thought of who's actually in town right now," because, college was on break. So anyway, I said, "Sure, let's hang out," or whatever. And we wound up getting blizzards at Dairy Queen, as the story goes, we sat and talked for probably about 6 hours straight.
Got ice cream drunk.
And it was crazy. We were just honestly, and in fact, when I got home, I went back home and I was staying with my parents at the time, and my mom's like, "Where you been this whole time?" I was like, "I'm sitting talking to this girl," and it felt like I was there 20 minutes, and it was one of those things where we just was like, "Wow, we just clicked." On a friend level, just really enjoyed each other's company, and from that day on, we just wanted to spend more and more time together. So it was about a year later when we got engaged, and then a year after that, we got married, and we've been married. This December will have been 25 years.
That's awesome.
So
All I heard from that story was that your wife Helga is the inspiration for the Ariana Grande song "Break Up with Your Girlfriend, I'm Bored." That's all. That's all I heard from
That's
that.
exactly
She's the
how it
original
worked.
Ariana Grande. "Break up with your girlfriend, I'm bored."
that's exactly how it worked.
Let's
Nathan.
go. Let's go get blizzards.
No,
That's the second verse of that.
that's right.
Write it up.
Yep.
Becky and I met at church. We were both attending. My brother-in-law was the pastor at the church she grew up in. And really the first time I remember noticing her was at a church picnic. And she was playing basketball with the guys. And I was not aware at the time that she was an all-state basketball player. But I knew that she really could play basketball with the guys very well. And so I decided I wanted to compete with her. And she just tore
Destroyed
me
you.
up. She destroyed me, embarrassed me, and I was upset about it, and I called her out on it, and she threw water in my face, and I was very attracted to that. And, we've been married 41 years. From there, we started dating, the whole thing, and been married 41 years this coming May.
Okay. So 41, 25, and you said 12?
12.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's your span of time that we've got into this whole marriage thing. So let's talk about this question. What's been the most fulfilling or rewarding thing that you've experienced or learned or whatever in marriage for you?
For me, and I said this in a message recently, and I've said it in other places because it hit me. The biggest catalyst for my spiritual growth has been my marriage, bar none, not even close. Second would be parenting. Parenting and marriage have done more to catalyze what God wanted to do in me more than anything I've ever done in my life, to the point that I totally understand why some forms of Christianity call marriage a sacrament. A sacrament just means it's a point of contact, it's a point of grace between you and God. That has certainly been that to me. I love Becky, and I mean, we have a very loving relationship, but we're really committed to each other. In many ways, we aren't very compatible. I mean, I am super. I get all my energy from being with people. She has to be alone. I'm very loud. She's not loud. I'm, and we're not a lot the same, but we had common values. We had a common commitment. We were very committed to this. The desire I had to love her and do it well caused me to look at myself because there's only so much I could do of looking at her. I knew she wasn't perfect. I never thought that. But you can only blame somebody that you love so long without going, hey, that can't be true. She's pretty awesome. Some of this problem, maybe all of this problem is mine. And once God helped me begin to see that in a lot of ways, there were conversations that I could have about that. And the same was true about my kids. Once I could begin to see, hey, I really love these 3 young men, want to do good by them, I couldn't blame them. I mean, you can't blame a 10-year-old for acting like a 10-year-old. That's what it'd be like blaming a dog for acting like a dog. But a 30-year-old should not act like a 10-year-old.
Yeah.
Right.
A 40-year-old should not still be acting like a 15-year-old. But I, had moments where I would be that way. And so at some point you have to look at that and go, oh,
What's up with that?
maybe this is me.
Yeah.
Maybe I have a problem. And I am a totally different person. In fact, to the point that I really don't think people that knew me when I was younger know me. I don't think I knew me the way I am, who I am intended to be. So that's been the biggest blessing to me, the biggest shock, the biggest surprise. I thought there'd be many great things come out of my marriage. I did not anticipate it would be the best spiritual growth tool God ever had for my life. So there.
Yeah, I could echo some of those same things. I was just trying to pick out one, aspect of it. I think for me, my wife has been and has shown me throughout our time together the definition of commitment and loyalty. Not that there aren't tons of other things that I've seen, but that one thing, because it hit me not too long ago, probably from talking to other people about struggles that they've had in marriage. One thing I have never, ever put 2 seconds worth of worry or thought into is whether or not she was 100% committed and devoted to me.
Yeah.
And she has never once given me a single hint that wasn't true. And I'm not exaggerating. That is her personality, and people who are friends with her know that. She is loyal to you. Once you got my wife as a friend, you got her forever. And she has been that to me in spades. And that I have realized over the years is a blessing. And similar to what you said, Ed, it has inspired me to want to be that for her in ways that I might not have thought about had I not seen it modeled by her. And so I have throughout the years learned what it is that speaks that to her. Devotion and loyalty and commitment to her. I have learned that language, that what they call it the love languages. How to speak those things to her, because it's different for everybody, and it's been a joy to me all throughout the years to figure out what are the things that I can do and things that I should not do that would communicate to her that I'm not with her. And so I steer away from those things, and I lean into the ones that do. And it's taught me how to love her, but it's also taught me how to love other people as well. So that's grown me a tremendous amount, and it's a huge blessing that I've noticed. So
yeah, same stuff for me. I mean, I think it's all growth related stuff. I think this is what I was going to say earlier before I had to hold it back. So I'll say I think the blessing Jennifer and I had is that we were so young. I mean, I did youth ministry here for 10 years. I still help out with some stuff, but I'm not the primary person anymore. And so I would regularly have parents come and say, please tell my daughter, please tell my son that they are not going to marry the first girlfriend they ever had. And I said, well, I can tell them that because you're right. And likelihood's not. I said, but I did. So I don't know what else to, so I can tell them that it won't happen for them like it happened for me, but it did happen for me that way. And the benefit that Jennifer and I have is that we grew up together. I mean, we really did. I hear about a lot of people, and I've counseled with a lot of people who, those first years of marriage are so difficult because you're bringing in the way you've done things and the way you've seen things, and they have a way of doing things and they have a way of seeing things. We were just so young when we first got married. I'm not saying we've never had trouble, because we have had tons of trouble, and that's been a big thing too. Is she has shown me tons of grace, but I think the one benefit we have is we really always have, similar to the point that Jason was making about commitment and loyalty. I have never questioned, even when I was a teenager, I have never once really questioned whether she was all in for me and then I was all in for her. And for me as a personality type, now with all the things I know of the Enneagram and such, as that's your Enneagram mentioned for this, I can see how when I read about threes, as I'm a 3, and the kind of pitfalls that they fall into, I have been saved from a lot of pretty big pitfalls because I was so committed to Jennifer that I wouldn't allow myself to go there. I mean, for a long period of time, most of my life, I was convinced I was going to somehow go into the entertainment industry. That was a big part. I was going to go either into the music industry or the film industry. And I could see how, whether I ever became successful or not, I would still probably at this age be going hard at that kind of thing, trying to make a name for myself, make myself a certain way. But I was so committed. I remember at one point, because you're 15 and you talk about things, and I said, we'll go on tour and you can sell the merchandise for the band, or we'll go do this. And I remember, and my wife recently reminded me that when we were 18, we were getting ready. She knew I was going to ask her to marry me. She said, did you think that was a real thing that was going to happen? I'm not going to go on tour. You're not going on tour.
I don't want to be a groupie, Nathan.
Yeah, I'm not going to be your groupie. What do you think this is? And I remember I very much at that point was like, okay, I guess that thing's not going to happen for me.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, I didn't. I legitimately thought
I did.
this is going to be a thing. And I was like, so we're not going to then move to LA and I'm going to try and make it as a director? And she goes, no, I don't want any of that. And so I had these moments where I was able to choose the relationship over my own desires at a pretty young age. And I can see how there were lots of things in my life that could have gone worse than they did if I was not in this kind of relationship. And then now as an adult, still regularly there are things I look at and I go, oh man, I could still be going after this thing. I could still be doing this thing. But the relationship with her, and as you talk about in the very first message in this series, that you're choosing die over my, that those decisions have had to be made for me over and over again at ages that I probably wouldn't have made those decisions had I not been in a relationship. And so, I know everyone gets freaked out. I remember, because we were 18 when we got engaged, and people saying, "Don't get married because you're gonna get, you get married young. It's all gonna mess up." Everyone who gets married young, which if you actually look at the research, that's not actually true.
Yeah.
Well, I try to always say to people, that whole thing about either getting married young or you need to wait because first marriages, by and large, whatever age, they tend to last at a really high. It's one how you can use stats,
Yes.
and it is statistically true that 50% of marriages end in divorce, but that's because second and third marriages fail at such a high rate.
Yeah, once you get divorced, the likelihood you'll have another divorce is high. So
up.
the overall percentage gets changed.
It gets drugged down. But when you just take and say how many first marriages fail, it's not close to 50%. They succeed, and age is not as much a factor as people want to make it to be.
True.
So I've said to many young couples, I remember to the very first couple married in this building, and they're still married. This building's now 20 years old. They got married right after. I said, because they were talking about it. She graduated in January. They got married soon after. And I said, they were like, "Oh, we're not going to have much." I said, "As long as you're okay." And I said this to you and Jennifer. I said, if you're okay not having what other 19-year-olds have, but you have each other,
Yes.
you can make it.
Well,
if you don't want to be able to go around and do all the stuff that other 19-year-olds do, but you get to do things with each other,
Yeah.
you'll be fine.
Well, and isn't it y'all's experience? I mean, all of us, relative to our current culture, got married young. I mean, to the way current things happen.
Oh, yeah.
And did not have a lot of money when we got married. I look back on those first couple years, even with all the because I know the first years are really hard for a lot, but even with all the bickering and those kind of things that go on, don't you look back and go, there was something really special about those times? Like for us, because we were in college, we got married in our second year of college, and we were able to. I remember once every had to be every 6 weeks, we could go out and get a Dairy Queen Blizzard because the Dairy Queen across from campus right there on Maple Street. Is that where you had your first date? On the one on Maple Street?
That's the one, buddy.
There you go, right there. The one on Maple Street.
the
Because I
one.
went to college over at West Georgia as well. And so they would have like a 15% off for students, and we would go. And I remember being like, those are such nice times. We'd skip class, and it was like, oh, we could, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I remember those times of not having a lot as being very special
Yep.
and building.
I do too.
So that leads to my next question, and I'll just this will be our last little run of topics. So we talked about the things that were fulfilling, rewarding that you learned. What were the biggest challenges that you've experienced so far, and how did you face them, overcome them? What was it that helped you through those? I can go first.
You go first on this one.
Yeah. I was going to say part of, and it's a good thing and a bad thing at the same time. Like you were saying, Nathan, is when you get married that young, I have now, looking back on it after these several decades, we are not the same person that we were when we met, when we dated, when we got married. I am way different than I was then. She is way, and we've talked about this. She's way different, and we both look at each other and go, that could have, and it has been at sometimes because we're changing and we're growing throughout these decades, and we're having to constantly make adjustments because and we've even had conflict about this sometimes of why don't you, because you used to, or why do you think that way and you used, because man, I have changed. I hope I'm growing. I hope I'm better. I have changed so much from that kid, because this is an interesting little fact. Ed can attest to this. The week I got married was the week I came to work for this church.
Yep.
That was the week I got hired. So we got married, and then we went on
You
our
were
honeymoon.
a quote unquote sort of intern working.
Yeah,
maybe
it was
toward a
my
job.
internship.
You were doing an internship.
Yeah.
You might get a job out.
That's
of it.
right. So I got married on one weekend. We went on our honeymoon. We came home, and I was day one at Community Christian was that next Sunday. I don't know where I was going with that. Anyway, but I had such spiritually, I was one way. I had an idea of how God and church and my spiritual life and how marriage ought to work. I had a whole set of ideas that I was sure was right. And it's amazing to me, sitting where I am today, how much that dude was wrong. And I would say that to him if he were sitting here today. You got to rethink that, dude. But my original point is, so I have changed so much, but we have had to learn to change together. So to the question of what has really helped us is, somebody said this to me, and it's back to what you were saying in the series. We got to make these choices. I've got to die over myself, and I've got to choose the relationship over myself. The way somebody had put it to me early on in our marriage was, look, your marriage is not a contract. It's a covenant you've made. And that phrase stuck with me for a year, and it still is. I can still remember it. A contract is, well, I will if you will, or I'll do this part, but you got to come and do your part, or else this ain't going to work. And I've watched a lot of marriages that are still based on that contract way of thinking, and they almost always bust up. But a covenant says, I will no matter what.
That's right.
No matter what you do, no matter how you change or grow, or, that's that whole better or worse thing, I'm committed to you. That's what a covenant is. And we've approached it that way from day one. I think we said early on, we're never going to say the word divorce. We're just committed to that. We're not going to say it. We're going to, and I'm not saying that people who have been divorced are less than. That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
for us, that was a covenant we made with one another. It has held true for us. We've been blessed. It's been a grace of God that it has helped us through all of those changes. So I would say that's been the challenge for us, So
Yeah, I would say mine's very similar. It'll have different specifics around it, but it's all about. There aren't many relationships that I've ever been in that I wasn't the biggest challenge in the relationship. That maybe not so much these days, but certainly it's been true most of my life. And when Becky and I got married, when that basketball game I talked about, at that point, I maybe not remembering the dates completely right, but I hadn't been a Christian 90 days at that point. And, everything was new to me, and I was trying to, she'd been a Christian all her life. Becky, by nature, wants to do things right. Mm-hmm. She tries to do things right. I, by nature, try to get to the goal that you want, but in my own way. Not necessarily right. I just want to get there. And so, we've had to change and adapt and all of that. And that's a part of the spiritual growth that's had to happen through the years. But that covenant kind of idea certainly has been what's carrying us through. The challenge has been just the willingness to continue to work. And even even these days, there are moments where you just, you still just have to work. There hasn't been any moment yet for me in 41 years where there's not times where there's times I just have to go, okay, I'm gonna have to work a little bit there. There's still a little work that's got to be done there. So that's been the biggest challenge. Is I think there's an idea that people have that it ought to be the one. In fact, I can just think about a guy that just quit something that I know was really good for him, and he said, it shouldn't be something I feel like I have to do. And there are many things in marriage that I feel like I just have to do,
Yes.
particularly things that are good for me. They really are things that I just have to do them. And on the other side of it, it's maybe a little hard to muscle up and do them on the front end. On the back side, I'm really glad I did them. So that's been the biggest challenge.
yeah.
Yeah, I think I don't know that there's been one challenge. I do think the beauty of the series that we're in is this idea of multiple choices you have to make, and you're having to make them over and over again. Certainly, die over my. I already talked a little bit about that. That's a big one for me. This us over me, I know, is one of them. I can't remember what they all are, but all of this. So the challenges have evolved. I've talked about this before, but within the first year, maybe year and a half of our marriage, it came out in that I had a pornography addiction, which was very difficult in our marriage. Just catastrophic. And when I talk about her being so committed and so loyal to me, I remember, because of my nature, I remember when I got caught in that, I remember thinking, oh, this is it. Like, she's going to walk out, she's going to be done. And she remembers the story as, I don't know why you think that, because that was never even an option. That wasn't even an option for me. But it was certainly very devastating, very difficult for us to deal with. So I learned a lot about grace in that. But then also, later on in the marriage, she had some pretty severe anxiety issues that were very difficult for us to deal with. I felt very ill-equipped. I didn't even know what to do some days. And so becoming people who had to be more open to God and God leading us through that, leaning on God and realizing there was nothing we could do to make it. When you talk about it being work, it's work. But knowing that there was no amount of work I was going to do that was going to accomplish it. Like as Dallas Willard always says, grace is opposed to earning, but it's not opposed to effort. That I have to put my effort in, but knowing God's going to make it happen if it's going to happen. And so that was very difficult. And then, over and over again, we've been foster parents. We now have adopted children, and there's a lot of challenges that come with that. And it puts a lot of stress on your marriage with one another, and you have to make sure that that ultimately our worth and our meaning comes from God, and that's one of the choices you make towards the end of this. It's the message that I'm preaching, I think, when this airs, probably next Sunday, which is you have to choose holy over happy, that I'm not always going to be happy. But, and I want to say this part, because I say this in the message, but I think it's huge. God's also not opposed to your happiness.
No,
because sometimes
that's
there's
right.
this form of Christianity, which is like God doesn't even care if you're happy. What it is that God knows holiness will make you happy.
There you go.
That over and over again. And we also have this thing of like, there's happy, and the Bible doesn't talk about happy. The Bible talks about joy. The Bible also does talk about happy. And he's, there's multiple songs that say, happy are the man whose ways are blameless, and who this. You're
That's
not
the
necessarily
whole Beatitudes. That's happy.
Yeah, that's
Yes,
exactly
happy.
right.
It doesn't happen in the moment. That happiness, what most of us think happiness is pleasure.
Yeah.
That this is pleasurable for me. And so we chase pleasure. Pleasure doesn't lead to happiness, meaning and worth and value, and what Christians would refer to as holiness, which is my whole life, is my meaning in life is dedicated to Christ and that when that's my ultimate goal, it may not be happy in the moment, but when we both are fully invested in my worth, my meaning comes from Christ. Therefore, and we just had this conversation today, you don't owe me anything. What love ultimately means is I don't want anything from you.
Right.
I only want something for you. And so I'm not expecting you to give me anything. Doesn't mean that we don't have standards and those kind of things. I don't mean that. What I mean is, though, I'm not holding over your head the things that you should be doing for me or giving to me that you're not. But I do constantly look at myself and say, I owe you everything. I owe you honor and love and commitment and loyalty and all those things. And so I think those are, when you talk about the things that have helped, really, I don't think I ever would have put them into these words ever. But these four choices, right? We're doing four. We do 4 weeks on this. These 4 choices, I have learned these things over marriage, and I'm still learning how to do them. But I not just to plug our series, I really do think these 4 things have been the most helpful things to me in understanding it's not about me, that it ultimately is about our marriage being a part of God's story, that God is telling a story about love and commitment, and I get to be a part of that, and it's not always happy, but it is always better.
Yes.
The interesting thing to me, and then I know we're going to be done, is I've known Jason and Helga every day of their married life because he started to work here right after he got married. I've known you and Jennifer, obviously, every day of your married life. And I know that there are challenges that are the kind of challenges that I have watched blow other marriages out of the water.
Yeah.
Becky and I have suffered some of those same kind of challenges. Yet when you talked about challenges, not that any of us would hide from any of those things.
No.
Like, for instance, I know, which would be a huge challenge. People say, what's the big challenge? Jason and Helga, their very first child, died a week before they were expected to give birth to him. And most people would go, the biggest challenge we ever have is the death of a child.
Yep.
But I know the pornography thing. Becky and I have dealt with addiction stuff. We've dealt with, we handled money really well for a while. And then when we started this church, I thought, I'll just go outside of God's bounds for a little bit and I'll borrow personal money to start this church. And it took me forever, and it cost my family a lot of stress and time and worry on my part to put myself in debt. And, things that blow up, all the things that blow up marriage.
Oh, yeah.
You get a little too connected with somebody, all the things, all the things, all the things.
Yep.
But those were not the things, because when you're making the other choices, those really are the big choices. And if you make them, they do lead to other things. If you pursue, like you said, if we pursue pleasure, we think that's happiness. Pursuing pleasure almost always leads to pain on the backside.
Yes.
You can pursue pleasure in a blizzard, and if you eat too many, you eventually wind up with diabetes, or you die early or a heart attack. Because, I've had those weight issues too, because I have pursued pleasure in drugs and all the stuff in those kind of ways. Or you can pursue what isn't pleasurable in the moment to deny yourself. Mm-hmm. And then when you're older, your health's better.
Yes. Well, and you are
and that
happier.
leads to being happy.
I say you are happier because you're at a place where you're able to do the things that matter most to you.
Yeah, which is what you really wanted. It is what you really wanted. But in the moment, pleasure calls to us. But we have to do some things in the moment that feel hard, but they ultimately lead to happiness and joy.
Well, and I want to just say one thing. I have been so blessed in my life and in my marriage because of being in relationship, obviously, with my parents, but having a lot of older Christians who have built into us from a young age. And I think this for a lot of the younger people, younger married people in our congregation. We don't use this word a lot, but the benefit of orthodoxy, that there is a correct way that the church has practiced doing things over and over again. The benefit of that is you get to learn from other people's wisdom that you don't have to. There's this idea of like young people can't be wise because they haven't gone through those experiences. You can't, because wisdom is just applied knowledge.
Yep.
I don't have to gain the knowledge by messing it up. I've messed up a lot of things in my life, but I can look back and see I have not blown up things that a lot of people in my friend group, my age group have, because, this is not to pat myself on the back. This is to say, I was able to listen to the wisdom of other people and to say, I don't have to learn from my own mistakes always. I will learn from my own mistakes, but other people have done things and figured out ways of doing things. And your marriage is not so unique. You cannot learn from other people's marriages. Mm-hmm. And you can't take these practices and these choices and say, you know what, I'm going to apply this even if it doesn't feel pleasurable in the moment. We so badly get into this place where we go, but we're different. It'll be different for us. It won't be that same way. It will be different, or it won't be different
that's
for
right.
you.
You got to say the opposite. You look
Yeah.
at those people and you go, I'm not different.
Right.
And if I don't
Yes.
watch myself, I will be right where they are.
Yes.
'Cause we've done that many times. Not that we look down on somebody, but we see
No.
somebody else's struggle that's a unique struggle that we haven't seen, and to be not so naive to say that, but for the grace of God, go I. That could be
Right.
me. And we've had this, my wife and I have had that conversation. We've seen a couple go through a struggle, and we've said, okay, when that comes for us,
Yes.
what will we do? And it has been a great benefit to our
Yes.
marriage.
Well,
Like
Becky
you
and I always have had, and don't have. I still have some of these people that were older than us that we looked at and go, I want what they have.
That's
And
Yes.
I mean
Absolutely.
relationally.
Yeah.
So what is it they're doing? And I've said to many young people, particularly with small groups in our church and that, if you're looking for friendships, you should probably be in a group of people that are all your age. But just realize you are pooling your ignorance.
Yep.
Yes.
Don't ask them for advice because they don't know nothing you don't know.
Yep.
They are as dumb as you are.
Yes.
If you want to learn how to get through the next 20 years, go find somebody 20 years ahead of you,
There you go.
and begin to do what they would tell you is wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
Find out if they are where you want to be in 20 years and listen to them.
Yep. All right. So if you have any other questions about this topic, send them to us, and maybe we'll fit them into a future podcast, or maybe we just said it all, and you don't have any other questions. I doubt that's true, but if so, send us questions about marriage, send us questions about whatever it is that you're wondering about. We'll try to get to them in the next coming weeks. I don't know what next week holds because I haven't gotten any at this moment, so it'll be a surprise.
We trust you're going to have something.
We trust you're going to send us something great. All right. So until then, see y'all next week.
Bye-bye.